and say, won't you come and visit? You know your house won't float away, no it won't. But you know I'd surely miss it. So it's here I'm gonna stay, here I'm gonna stay, here I'm gonna stay, here I'm gonna stay,
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773's Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. We've already heard from David Lindley, the string maestro, but just a great cat in his own right. And now I get a chance to continue to excavate the regionalism of music in our country at one time with a trombone player who was a session cap and also, marked the sound of the Northeastern soul R&B outfit, jazz outfit known as Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Dave Bargeron, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Did you recognize that tune coming in?
I did not. I was going to ask you what it was.
All right, I woke up and I'm serious. I woke up this morning before my wife and kids woke up, and I went down to the record player and threw this on and played drums to it. It was from John Simon album.
For heaven's sake!
On Warner's. I think it was cut. I mean, it has a Woodstock feel to it, and I looked, and I thought Howard was. I just knew Howard Johnson was on. He's playing Barry sax, Brecker's on it.
Was I playing?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, man. You were playing Bone, and Dennis Whitted and Dave Holland as a rhythm section, and really that's kind of I mean, Bargeron, how nice was it for you to grow up where human beings were trying to imitate other human beings and then ultimately develop their own individual sound on their instrument? How rewarding has that been looking back on your career? When you look at now, a lot of peeps are, because it's what's in, it's what's selling, people are playing to machines.
Absolutely. No. In the time coming up, especially, of course, around that Woodstock, that was done in Woodstock, by the way. It was done in a studio in Woodstock. Yeah.
Because I mean, the back picture is so epic on the record. It's like all the horn players, Sanborn's on it, and I just love the vibe. And but Holland is elevated up on this, he's perched up on this, almost like grid pyramid thing, and Whitted's behind him. So it looks bizarre. The music just smokes, though. I mean, it's one of the greatest records of all time.
You like it? That's terrific.
I dig it. Well, no, I mean, it's just really, it feels, I mean, ultimately, David Lindley said it's got to have the smell. It's got to have the sound. It's got to have the feel.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so, you know that.
Yeah, sure. That's one of the first dates that I think I ever played with and began to know David Sanborn. We became quite friendly over time after that, but that was way back at the beginning. And they were telling me about this guy that had polio at one time when he was 9 or so, and he held the saxophone funny because his arm was still a little bit disabled, and he had to kind of prop the saxophone up in a certain way. And there were certain things I never forgot, but there was a unique, absolutely unique sound. I mean, you could hear it that day.
Yeah,
I remember. I said, holy shit. And it was so goddamn, excuse my French, attractive.
Yeah.
It just was. It was nuts attractive.
I agree.
Of course, he blossomed from there. And in fact, his sister and my wife are still best friends to this day.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
We knew him pretty well.
So
I played on a bunch of his records. We played with Gil Evans together for years. We played with a couple other people too. It was just wonderful. But about your question about
playing with individuals,
playing with people
that you knew, you could tell their sound a mile away.
That's right, and that whole idea took with me very early that I wanted to do that myself. You know, I mean, so many people now just imitate, or I mean, truly imitate others just to be in the marketplace and stuff like that. It's not artistic imitation. Like a lot of people grow up, you have mentors, you have heroes that you try to get a little of, but then you kind of at one point or another branch off on your own. And that's what I always tried to do. And to some extent, I'm still trying. You know,
absolutely, I mean, and we're all still growing. I mean, I'm 39. I have a long way to grow, but you cats. I mean, the inspiring thing is that you guys just have the open mindset. You're learning the rest of your lives. I mean, you learn every day.
Well, and that's the way the whole scene was set up. Then
mm-hmm.
you had your heroes out front that you aspired to. By the way, just a unique note to me, I never aspired to trombone players once. All of my heroes were trumpet players, saxophonists, and guitar players because those instruments moved. The trombone, I felt, was just a horrible instrument as far as being graceful of movement and stuff.
Well,
That's
you
something
definitely move. You move that
time.
thing around. So, I mean, as far as like, I guess that's kind of what I wanted. Like, what was the band that you were in prior to getting into to Blood, Sweat, and Tears? Like in the '60s, were you in psychedelic rock band? That's the because the cruise. And also, what was the influence of Wayne Henderson on you?
I had no influence of Wayne Henderson other than, I don't say no. The only influence I had is that he was soulful, and I enjoyed that element of his playing.
I dig.
The rest of it.
I'm saying like the Jazz Crusaders were on your radar though. Like you were collecting their records.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Wilton Felder. I mean,
saxophone, ridiculous.
I still love him. There you go, saxophone again. He was my hero in that band. Listen, I didn't play in any. I fucking hated rock and roll. I didn't play in any rock and roll. I was a jazz enthusiast, still am.
Right.
And I didn't play in any rock and roll. I came up aspiring to play jazz wherever I could with whomever I could that was good. And I was lucky enough to come up through the business a little bit in New York, and I was playing with the Doc Severinsen Band. Not on television. He was so popular, he had a weekend band called the Now Generation Brass, but he had people like Snooky Young in it. Great musicians in the band.
Who else? Who was on drums? Shaughnessy?
Ed Shaughnessy.
Ed Shaughnessy was on because Ed Shaughnessy was on the both gigs, right? He was on the Tonight. He was on the TV show and
that's right.
Unbelievable, dude. Shaughnessy was cooking the groove with Bargeron there, so you were in that band.
Oh, absolutely. I was a charter member of that Now Generation Brass with all these great people in it.
Who else was in it? Who else was in it, though?
Oh, shit, I forget. Arnie Lawrence was playing the
but I mean, like the point is, jazz was the hip. It was still in the 60s. In the late 60s, it was still hip music. Really.
There was a guy named Bill Tackus playing bass.
Tackus played with Bob DeRoe, man. Dude, this is a ridiculous. Are there tapes of that? I would love to hear that.
Anyway, we don't. I don't think we have tapes from it. I don't really recall any. But let me finish. So I'm playing with Doc Severinsen's band. I got into that because I was recommended to it by Bill Tackus, who heard me playing of all places, heard me playing tuba with Howard Johnson down in the village.
In Gravity or what band?
No, wait a minute. We had no Gravity. The first band was not called Gravity. It was called Substructure. Same people, way the hell back.
Hold on. Substructure.
Substructure.
I want to know. Give me the rundown. So it's Hojo, Bargeron. Who else was in that band?
Joe Daly.
You're blowing my
Bob,
mind right now. This is ridiculous.
Okay. Earl McIntyre.
Is he still with?
Bob,
Is he still with us?
Yes, he is.
Oh my God!
Most of these guys are. That's the amazing thing. We just finished a record with Gravity, which all that band became Gravity. A couple of years later, he changed the name to Gravity. But let me just tell you the thread of it. So there I am playing with Bill Takacs. Was a kind of he played electric bass on the Tonight Show, but he was a reaching guy. He wanted to play jazz. He wanted to be with the kind of the vanguard of people that were doing it. So he hung out with us at Howard's Loft and downtown in the Village. This is years ago. This is 1965, something like that. 67.
Howard had a loft down there. He was part of the loft scene.
Yeah, he had a loft there for years.
Oh my God!
And we used to rehearse there. So anyway, this is where I met Bill Takacs, right? And Bill knew that I was a trombone player because I played with a guy named Warren Smith that used to hang down there and wrote octets for.
Dude, I've done two interviews. I've done two interviews with Warren. It's ridiculous.
Okay,
guy.
so I
Bad.
played the trombone with Warren. So Bill knew about that. And then of course I was a tuba player with Howard. And he put the two together and he said, this guy must play the bass trombone. Playing tuba and playing tenor trombone. He put this together in his mind and went to fucking Doc Severinsen and said, Doc, I got just the guy for the Now Generation brass. Dave Bargeron gave me the phone number. Doc called me up. The first time I showed up with a bass trombone to do a professional gig was at the Tonight Show set at NBC where we had our first rehearsal.
What an amazing story.
And it's absolutely true. Okay, so
Bill Takacs, by the way, just for the record, is the most badass bass player. The stuff he did with Bob Duro in a duo setting was filthy stuff. He was really stretching,
Sure.
but this is the thing. You said something, and I want you to articulate this for my generation and for younger generations. Like you said, he wanted to play. He wanted to be doing the real thing. That you guys, what is doing it? What is doing the real thing?
Doing the real thing to me is always seeking and trying to find my own improvisational voice.
In a group context.
Well, when you get a chance to solo, you're always doing so in jazz bands, and that was just exactly and still what I want to do. So anyway, so there I am with Doc, and by the way, I got into that. And okay, so I'm with Doc. I had already made friends with Louis Soloff, who you know about.
Sure. Rest in peace.
Right?
Rest in peace.
We were good. We were very close friends.
Yeah, brilliant.
During the sweat times before and after. So anyway, I was with Doc, and so I was beginning to have a little profile in New York, just a little, you know. As people do. He's a young trombone player. He's pretty good at here. He plays tuba too. So Blood, Sweat, and Tears had to do movie tracks for Owl and the Pussycat with Barbra Streisand.
Wow.
And their trombone player had to go to Florida on family business, last-minute call. And Louis, bless his heart, recommended me to come in and sub. This is the first time the band ever had a sub during a recording session. But it was for a movie. It wasn't for one of their records, so okay. So I went in there. Now, this is Columbia at 30th Street. Huge, beautiful studio, and there I am with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I had been training myself. I knew what the studio scene was in New York. You play it once through to the music, the red light is on, and goddamn it, you're recording. And it has to be spot on. That's the way it was. That's the way it still is if you get a job recording, which you can't. But anyway, that's the way it was then. And so
you had to be on it, though. I mean, you didn't get a second chance, is what you're saying.
You didn't get a second chance, man. You were supposed to be good enough to play it once through and then record the damn thing. And that's what I was training for. So when I got the play with blood, sweat, and tears, I'm nervous as a son of a gun, and that's exactly the approach I took. So I ate up the part. I just ate everything up. Solos, the works. I mean, I was impressive.
You were on
that day.
fire.
And these
Dude.
guys,
This is unbelievable.
I was on fire, and these guys are standing around saying, "What the hell?" They would spend. This is a rock and roll band. They would spend a full day doing a goddamn half.
Their
of
budget
track,
was
you know?
insane. They could. Their budget was huge.
Sure, it didn't matter. They'd set up recording studios like living rooms, and you go day to day and hang out.
Oh,
if
my
they
God.
made the music, fine.
Oh, it's great.
It was so wasteful and so ridiculous, but that's the world that I got ushered into. And so, okay, so on the way out that day, I said, jokingly leaving the room, I said, if you guys ever need a trombone player, ha, 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 here's my number, right?
Right.
6 months later, I'm on the road with Doc Severinsen in Dallas, Texas. And I get a call after I come back. I go to the hotel desk. There's a call for you. Blood, Sweat, and Tears is looking for you. So I called. Bobby Colomby was kind of leading the band at that time. I called the number, and there he was. He said, "Dave, we want you to join Blood, Sweat, and Tears." I was on the first thing smoking. Back to New York. And the next photograph of me that I have in my collection of stuff is on a beach listening to a tape recorder with headphones, learning the parts on a beach in Hawaii, because that's when the next gig was with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and that's where I went.
Was it a festival?
No, it was a New Year's gig.
It's a New Year's gig. So you were
A New Year's
you were a
concert.
jazzer through and through, and by hook or by crook, you got reeled into a band that played, played rock with jazz and soul aesthetics, right? I mean that's
It had a lot of soul and jazz influence. The people that we kept getting in the band after I was the only change for a long, long time. I was the first change the band ever had. But then everybody we got in had a kind of a jazz leaning. And it just became a jazz rock band. All of us had this orientation towards jazz more than rock and roll.
Well, I'm just saying.
Really
I want
did
to.
after
Yeah.
a
Well,
while.
I want to. This song. I also woke up this morning after the John Simon "Living in a Land of Sunshine," which you need to listen to immediately because the horn arrangements are insane. But which we came in. But this tune I also played this morning, and it's at the cutting edge of Bargeron and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You guys, I want you to take a listen to this, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave Bargeron. Thank you for being part of this planet, because that album, Mirror Image, I don't. A lot of the early Blood, Sweat, and Tears before you joined with David Clayton is not really my cup of tea. It's really when the band. It's really when the band gets into Ronnie McClure and Larry Willis, because I think that Larry Willis is in the same discussion as good as Herbie Hancock, man.
Let me tell you something. I was instrumental. Let me remember when we were talking previously, I said the band eventually, because when we replaced people and stuff, became more jazz-oriented.
Absolutely.
I got Larry Willis into the band. I got Ron McClure.
How'd you get them in? Because McClure was playing with Jader on the West Coast. He moved to the New York. I was thinking about this because I was listening to this Escovedo Brothers album with Ron McClure and Cal Jader, 72, but this album's like 74. So I'm like, McClure was back in New York, and then Willis was cranking things out with, like, he's playing with Masakela and stuff like that.
Yes, he was, but neither of them had a job that paid like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or had anywhere near the public exposure that you would get. Listen to the music that they were playing. That is like Herbie Hancock. That is straight out jazz, oriented for the time. And that's what they were playing, and you're reaching all these people with it. And they weren't fools. This was a great gig, period. That's how we got them. Larry, you want to be in Blood, Sweat? You want me? You want what? Yeah, I'm coming.
Now, was that like Columby's sort of, like, was there really was there a true leader, or did everybody kind of self-police themselves?
This was a cooperative group. It always was from the very beginning, and I insisted on being an equal member of that cooperative when I joined. That's why we always were able to pull things off with a group vote. That's why we didn't become victim to, for instance, the ego and the terror of a David Clayton Thomas, because he was just equal one of us, you know.
Right.
And that's how we avoided an awful lot of that. So that's how we got through. So when one of us wrote something or arranged it, we want to rehearse it. We rehearsed it. We held forth at the recording sessions like the leader or something like that. Bobby Columby, bless his heart, was our producer after a while, and he did an awful lot of leadership and coordination, so forth and so on. But it was kind of a combination. When the time suggested it, certain people took over, and other times it was a group vote. Other times it was Bobby. It worked out pretty well, actually.
It's the funkiest, razor sharp, like, soul rock band. I mean, that album gets no, and there's this other thing that's profound. Like I said, the DCT years, I'm not really checked into that, and I am locked into this instrumental Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You had Ralph McDonald playing the cajon. There was like these animal screeching instruments, so you were incorporating African percussion. But
we had Don Elias, right? Don Elias.
Yeah, I mean,
Did
it was.
He play on any of that?
You know, that I don't know, and I just had this. I guess my question is, how did the music lend its? How did you do it so that it was essentially rock music? Maybe you were only playing over one chord, but there were jazz musicians playing rock music. Why did it help make the music swing so hard at that time? Abercrombie told me, and I'm not going to do justice to what he said, but you had serious musicians with serious vocabulary playing relatively simple music and making it swing.
Well, look, here's the way as I always saw it, is that the underlying basic form was, as you say, and as people would listen to it, very simple. Like the form of the tune you just played had a couple of chords in it that went on forever.
Exactly. Dude, McClure's just do. You know, it wasn't that complex.
Yeah, but of course the basic thing wasn't. But what you layered on top of it, listen to Willis. He plays everything on top of that. And the rhythm section to hold it together so people would love it, the bass, the drums, a very steady.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It is so, and so that was my question: is that particular album, or in general, once you guys became an improvisational instrumental group, how much was it? Everybody, did you cut everything live, or did you like overdub like percussive parts, or was it everybody just hitting live?
Well, I for one hated. Almost the entire history of the band hated to do these overdub things, which you would have to do because the Columbia engineers and stuff, everybody, they just wanted perfection, you know. Yeah. So you would isolate the horns and separate them and play with the rhythm section that we pre-recorded, and I hated that. And I was one of the ones that was instrumental in, we would go to the studio and the first thing we would do is work up a tune so that it was absolutely acceptable as a full performance live in the room, the whole band. Then
how long did that take?
Forever. Not forever, but you can imagine, brushing up a performance, not adding little pieces during the overdubs and that bullshit. No. It was like we created the thing live in the studio, and then only then would we take it apart and record it real quick, piece by piece, so they could get it clean. But we prepared the piece, and that's how I also convinced the band that this was the way to do it, because then we would always be able to play this stuff live as a whole band. We would have it prepared. We would have it done. We would have the little parts that we had to add. Somebody could do it, you know. Right then and live.
But I want to be clear, though. You would work up a song, but then when the actual record button would go on, nothing was in isolation. It was actually all of you hitting at the same time?
No, we rarely recorded all at the same time. What I'm telling you is we prepared the piece, we stand in the studio, we get done with it, and then the next second they recorded the rhythm section. The next minutes after that, they recorded the horn section.
So you were ready you were cooking. I got it.
You were ready cooking. You were ready to do it.
Because that's good, because it does, it like for like Larry, that solo where he's riffing, was that overdub, or was that like straight up with the
No, that was a straight up solo during the rhythm section.
Dude, I mean, that dude, where was he? What kind of gigs was he? Were you playing jazz or gigs with Willis? Like, what kind of bands were you in, like jazz groups and stuff on the side, like in New York?
You know, I forget at the beginning of that. We had such a rich time after Blood, Sweat, and Tears. His membership and tenure started with the band. I don't even remember what he was doing before that. All I know is that I was completely instrumental in getting him. You know, we had no real representation of the real jazz world as far as race goes. We did not have a black member of the band, which I always felt very sensitive about. You're going to play jazz, man, and there's 9 of you. Why not some variance in the race of the band, you know? So I thought of that. And I just took one listen to him and said, we got to have this guy. Everybody agreed, and there it was. And so we were, to my way of thinking, a little more valid, a little more respectable, a little more up in the swim of the way shit should be.
Absolutely. And I think that, so did you know McClure from back in the New Haven days when he was playing there, or how did you know McClure?
No, I heard him in New York, and I knew he played electric bass, and I knew he was a great upright bass player. And if we were going to play some jazz during our concert, wouldn't it be great if he had both axes there and he changed to that?
Well, no, that's the cool thing, because on that movement, that was movement 1, and then there was movement 2. Are you very familiar with that record, Mirror Image?
You know what? I haven't heard it in years. It never got on CD, and I have it in my collection. And
check it out.
I haven't heard it in a long time.
All I'm saying is, then all of a sudden, McClure starts bowing the upright bass in the second movement.
That's right.
And it's just like, this is filth, you know. And anyway, I got another tune, because again, this one is. This is, I could really listen to this like all day, but it's gonna highlight our guest. So let's take a listen and we'll come back. music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you by Pretzinger Agency, Allstate Insurance, Abbott Taylor Jewelers, R. Zach Wagner Jewelers, the Jewish Federation of Southern Arizona, and the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona, and we thank them for their support. What do you got for us, Mr. Bargeron?
What do I got for you? What would you like?
What tune was that?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't play the bridge. That was Snow Queen off Maiden Voyage. That blood.
Oh my God!
And that was your bone solo.
You know,
that was your bone solo. On
yeah,
that.
I know. I remember the solo, of course. I just don't remember the context. I haven't heard that. Listen, Blood, Sweat, and Tears was 47 years ago, man. You know, this is stuff that I don't listen to all the time at all.
No, I did. I wasn't born during this time, so all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build a bridge for my daughters and future generations to understand how real music is made, because real music is not. It's made in isolation more than ever before. Music is listened to in isolation more than ever before, and you're having people that are quote-unquote successful artists that aren't even real artists. So there's a lack of authenticity.
Yeah,
and so that's, you know, I mean, with everything, you can fix a lot of crap today. Like you said, you couldn't fix anything before. My question is, in the live setting, did you get to play the Fillmore West? Did you play with like Miles and an M1 band? Who were the bands you were paired with when you went on tour?
Oh, we were paired with any number of bands. We usually were headliners, and we would have, you know, a singer or something like that. We had very few, unless it was a festival, we were always the headliner with an opening act, which was never really a band, very rarely a band. It was usually a singer of some sort, you know.
Because I was going to say, David Clayton told me that with his iteration of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, they would open for Monk and Miles at Madison Square Garden.
They did that before I joined.
Yeah, absolutely. So you didn't play, like, I'm just thinking, like, at a festival now, to me it would be like Tower of Power, Sons of Champlin, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago. I mean, were there festivals like that?
We didn't. I didn't play. We played with. We played several contexts like that. I just don't remember the lineups, but mostly we had single artist opening acts. You know, when we were part of a festival, you play with all kinds of people. That's how David Clayton Thomas is able to drop those kind of names. You know, but we played with everybody in festivals. You name them, we played with them all over the world. But those are festival concerts. Those are not specific concerts with 2 or 3 bands.
Yeah, no, but did you go to Bill Graham? Did you work the film?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you talk about your experiences of the film? You know, the Fillmores, like Fillmore West specifically. Did you guys go to play at the San Francisco one?
Well, what happened was we were playing a bigger hall in San Francisco when we went out there to the Fillmore to see the band that was playing there, which was Howard Johnson with Taj Mahal.
72. Yeah, 72.
And I had just a few months before that, Howard called me, "Hey, we got a chance. The band Gravity's got a chance to play with Taj Mahal. Go on the road. You want to be in it? You want to do it?" I said, "Blood, Sweat, and Tears just asked me to join." So I couldn't. So we went out to we went out to see Howard with Taj, and of course I saw him that night. We had just finished our concert the night before. I guess he was still in town. We came by and saw him. "How you doing, Howard?" "Kicking ass and taking names." That was his. I'll never forget it. That was his reaction. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, you saw music there, but did you play there?
Not in the West. We played in the East.
You played in the Fillmore East.
Yeah.
Going back to that Gravity group in '68, the original Cats. Was there? Were you playing? Was there any rhythm section? Was there any percussion? And was it the most progressive thing? Was there anything close to it at that time? I mean, in terms of like sonically expanding music on the East Coast?
There was no tuba group anywhere like it. It was Howard had a unique idea for the tuba group. He would, most tuba groups will have a euphonium, which is a small, higher pitched instrument that looks exactly like a tuba, but it's just smaller.
Yeah, I know
all
exactly.
The way around.
Sure.
And that plays in all tuba groups across the United States, even at that time, use those as the two top instruments. Howard would have none of that. He wanted the tubist to play all parts. Well, the first two parts, tuba 1 and tuba 2, were ridiculous hard to play because they were so high register. But you had this, when you heard all the instruments together, they were so rich. That's what he heard, that's what he held on to, and that's what he insisted on forever. Of course, it kicked my rear end because I was playing second, and the parts were ridiculous, but I learned to play better and better because of it.
So, like, were you doing like a Great American Songbook? Was it just free form stream of consciousness? Like, how can you give an idea of what?
Oh, no. Howard would write arrangements on existing tunes, even some tunes that he wrote himself, and he arranged tunes of music that already existed. It was no free form, nothing like this. Was quite organized.
And so could you essentially, was it odd metered music? I'm just like, there's really no music. There's no real way to capture. Like, were you playing the Vanguard? I mean, was this palatable for a straight ahead jazz audience?
We played at the half note. We played at the 5 spot.
Wow, that's awesome.
We played at places like that at times. Yeah.
So did you get a chance to play with Monk and those cats?
No, but the unusual thing is that we had a very close association with Monk because Bobby Colombi's brother, Jules, was Monk's manager. So we were very.
That's so cool, man. Unreal.
Around.
So I mean, would he stop by the gigs or the sessions?
On occasion, yes. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that guy's been built into sort of, I mean, was he recognized at that time as the avant genius that he is today, or what was the view amongst the public? You mentioned before about the onus of getting at Larry Willis in the band for humanistic reasons, and I'm producing a documentary on Stan Getz, and when I go back to this period in the early 60s, white journalists like myself were writing about this divide between angry message music, which was not true, the Coltrane Archie Shepp, versus someone like Getz, who was brilliant, but he was melodic and just beautiful ideas, and it was the pretty boy verse, and so what was obviously you loved Monk, but what was the feeling like him at that time?
The feeling among us musicians is that we recognized his genius, but knew that it wasn't being recognized as it should be. It has taken all this time for that to happen. It was not like that when he was just among us. It was to a few, of course, the inside critics, the inside people that really loved jazz, really loved the people that forged ahead, that were trying new things and so forth and so on. He was recognized completely and right away for that. But as far as the great public jazz group is concerned, it took many, many years for him to arrive at the status he enjoys now.
And what is your rationale for him being, was he, I don't know if you use the term held back or not recognized? Was it just people, is it just come down to is it come down to just typical American?
Oh, no, I don't remember the
or was it more like what he was doing was not understood, or
it was not conventional. It was really different.
It was more different than gravity, more different than that trombone thing.
Yeah, sure, because he was his soloing, his playing, his tunes were so unconventional, so it was completely different. And people didn't recognize that. He wasn't a virtuoso instrumentalist by far,
Right.
and he played this stuff that you just really couldn't understand at the time. You tried, of course, and if you were a real insider trying to understand and accept what was going on for the future, you'd try to listen to it and appreciate it, but it was very hard when it was first introduced.
That was the question that popped out of my head earlier. That album Mirror Image is near and dear to my heart because a tune that we're not playing is "Are You Satisfied?" When you listen to the lyrics in that tune, take a look at 65, the whole getting set to die, okay, and then you're talking about life expectancy, and it's mind blowing for me.
I was.
It's like that was it, man. I mean, in your 60s, you were done. Like that was kind of the end of your life, and you're like, you mentioned having a break at 16 years old, and so it's profound for a 39-year-old journalist to look back and say, cats didn't live as long, and they were also cut loose much earlier to try to do something with themselves. And I
remember.
Yeah, and so I know you're given a credit on that tune for writing. I was just hoping you could paint the picture. It's meant a lot to my kids and me.
Well, it meant a lot to me at the time, and I really lived on that sentiment. Are you satisfied? Have you done are you doing or have you done what you really had set out to do and what you really think you should be doing? And I don't know what my answer to in the tune was, but it's ongoing. No, I'm not satisfied.
Never. No. I yell at the record, man. I said, no, I'm not.
That's right. And that was the point.
So did you? Were you? You put the arrangements on that, or what did you write the lyrics for that song?
Yeah, I wrote the lyrics to that song.
Wow, I am so psyched.
I wrote most of the song. What?
That made my day. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's just so great because
I think I'm listed. I forget, but I'm listed with George Vardenius, I think, and somebody else, maybe three of us.
No, there's 4 cats that are given credit for that particular song.
Where are they?
Let's see. It's Bargeron, Fisher, LaCroix, Wadenius.
Yeah, George Wadenius. And Jerry Fisher, who was the lyricist. Yeah, we had a lot of input, but as far as the core, I was very closely responsible for the core of the meaning of the song and so forth and so on, the lyric. So I was very close to that part of it, the core of it.
Are you at this point doing sort of? Is Blood, Sweat, and Tears disbanded, or is there still an iteration of that band playing? And
There's an iteration. There's an iteration of that band put out to make some money by Bobby Colomby, full of young people that regurgitate the hits. That's been there's been iterations of the band for years doing that, but nobody's made any real musical headway. It's just a repetition of stuff. That's the way I see it.
Right. I mean, do you stay in touch with any of the cats from that group?
Oh, Fred Lipsius, I saw him during Louis' memorial. Louis and I, because we were in New York together, worked almost every day together for years and years and years in the recording business. So I was very close to him. Other people, I'm still in touch with Jimmy Fielder, the original bass player.
Yeah, he was playing on that Snow Queen track.
Yeah, sure. And Bobby Colomby on occasion, he became an officer at Sony Records, and when I hear from him, there's another royalty check, though small now.
Yeah, no, I really it's one of the bands that I have. I'd love to talk to. So Fielder, but Fisher's. What about Jerry LaCroix? Is he still with us or no?
Jerry LaCroix, I don't know. I don't know if he's still with us. He was kind of a takeover for Jerry Fisher, and he did fine for the amount of time he was there, but then we didn't have him after a while.
So tell me what musically gets you off the most in 2017. What has been the most inspirational musical moment for Dave Bargeron this year?
Well, I haven't had many of them for this year. My favorites, abiding favorites, are still the pianists, the guitarists, the trumpet players. Those are the people that I still love. Those are the people that turn me on. Mostly it's music from the past. I haven't heard anything that's really that I remember that's brand new, that is knocking my socks off, to tell you the truth. And I'm still very much playing. I play full time. You've called the bowels of the Ambassador Theater in New York, where I play first trombone and have for 21 years at Chicago, the Broadway show.
Wow.
And that's where I am right now, in between shows. That's why I said 5:30, because we just quit at 5. We got another show this evening. So I've been doing that a long time. There's one issue that I wanted to speak to.
Please.
You know, just to let you know, and just to have this out there.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that the critics in the early days used to just say so much is about jazz musicians that did commercial work. They sold out. That I heard that theme so many times it makes me sick. Sold out. What about making a living? What if you want to have a full life, which I luckily and thankfully have had, where you were able to bring up a family, where you're able to own your own home, when you're able to have actually a summer home, when you have kids that have gone to great schools that are now have fantastic jobs and have fantastic families themselves. Sold out? The hell with you selling out. Yeah, jazz was my favorite, and it still is to this very minute, the very favorite, the very most respected form of music, so forth and so on. But man, I used to hate that criticism. Oh, he sold out. He got a job playing music that actually made a living. I really resent that, and I just wanted that out there, because there's a lot of musicians that I hope they're not saying that anymore. I don't read very much jazz critiques and so forth and so on, but boy, I used to hate that. Sorry, Jake. I just wanted to get.
No, I wonder why you. I assume that it's been directed at you before.
No, I escaped that because I never.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, why do you have a visceral reaction to it unless you feel like maybe they're saying, you know, he's not a purist. Like you said, you heard that back in the day. Were they pointing it at you at all?
Yeah, sure they were, and it's at that point that I had to make the decision. I don't care. This is my favorite music, but I devote as much as I can to it. But I'm not going to lose my life over it. I can't.
Was there a specific time? Like, yeah. I mean, I don't get it. Plus, I mean, you know, you could have gone off and played, you know, and I don't want to bet, you know, you could have played soft Velveeta, you know, made a buck on that. I mean, you were playing like some of the hippest, music at that time. I mean, I don't see what the problem is.
Well, it was still, look, Jake, it was still not sitting in a tower somewhere and just creating a small quartet or something like that to play jazz only. Look, I got very fortunate. The Blood, Sweat, and Tears, we grew every time when there was replacements. We got jazz musicians in the band, and it became, by the time Mirror Image came out, there's the proof. It was very jazz-oriented, and we got a way to get in, play those concerts in front of thousands all the time, and still, look, we had our cake, and we're eating it too. And it was a miracle that we did that. And, yeah, people at the time, Oh, they sold it. That's, like
yeah, I think. I mean, that just that strikes me as yeah. I mean, that would have been very difficult. I know that there. I mean, when I read, I only collect vinyl, and I have a very small, collection of like, Space Age with George Russell. I think that's the name of it. And then there's like a Blood, Sweat, and Tears album and some cool folk psychedelic music. But I mean, you look at the back of like a couple of records on Columbia, John Hammond, and you got Nat Hentoff, and he's writing liner notes about Charles Mingus, and he's writing liner notes about Bob Dylan at the same time. So that there weren't these barriers up, that were based on genre that stratified the music. And that's the main reason I talk to you cats, because if there's a complete collapse of civilization and a rebirth of music or whatever it is, cats need to stop cutting themselves off as being, I'm just a rock musician or I'm just a jazz musician. It's, you're a musician, and there's obviously a supply and demand issue, but there's also an idea of just basically saying, like in this country, jazz music has never really been able to, you've never been able to make a living. A lot of people have died starving geniuses. People like Ndugu Chancellor.
That's right.
Right.
And I wasn't going to do
no,
that.
And Ndugu Chancellor said, the drummer, he told me the same thing. He goes, I didn't want to be no starving genius, And so I respect it. I just, when you said it, I felt like you were advocating for people like yourself.
I am, and I was, and I do. I just, and it wasn't. It was to look. Life is large. It can be large, and it can be a lot more than just aspiring to one little thing that you do.
I agree.
And
I really agree.
Again,
good call.
For me, again, it was family. It was having a life that went along with my profession, And so, I just wanted to bring that up. It's been very important to me forever. It's not that somebody really accused me directly of selling out. It's just always that was in the air, and I felt sensitive about it. And I wanted to say, to hell with you, man. It can be done both ways. It can be done together.
Right, and you're not some guy that went off and did some Ponzi scheme and ripped a bunch of people off. You made a living for yourself. You raised your family. You didn't. This isn't like the banksters who basically. No,
that's true.
You walk.
And I never did anything. There was a lot of stuff. Look, the recording industry, when I was doing jingles and films and other people's records and movies and so forth like that, all those recording years, there's a very small group of people in New York that got to do that work when you come right down to it. Christ, there are only about 30 of us altogether. They're just strings, woodwinds, rhythm section, horns. It was a very small group that did the majority of that stuff. And I always wanted to break into that. And Blood, Sweat, and Tears, because I was famous, because of the band, opened the door for the first time. If you walked through it and you could play and you had the personality to deal with the people in the business and you were nice and so forth and so on, you might get a chance. Well, I got damn lucky. And I had the chance to do it, But I just go back to that thing about selling out, which really bothers me. It still bothers me because you can do it all, I think, and give it justice to every bit of it.
Well, and that you've earned it, so you should be, that should be the security.
Oh, right. No Ponzi schemes, no,
yeah. It wasn't like, help this, give this guy, like when James Gadsden went out to L.A., he's starving to death, and so Charles Kennard's like helping him get gigs. That's so cool, but it wasn't like you were like connected, give this guy a chance. He's terrible, he's not, but he's related to, you weren't connected. You did it your way. Timing is everything in life. I mean, that
yeah,
is,
it is.
and so, 6 years in, over 1,000 primary source interviews. We've been friends on Facebook for a long time, but it's beginning to start to surge. The snowball is beginning to really pick up steam. And Bargeron, we'll definitely connect and do set two. I really had a ball, man. This was great. We just went for an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it got to ramble.
No, dude, this was a fun. I know. I mean, you don't stop apologizing. This is what I mean, you feel better that you got that out of your system. So that's what it is.
Yeah. The point I was making about this small group of people that did the recording was there was an unbelievable current of politicizing that went on that supported some of those people being in that position. But eventually they would fail, and those that were real came up through, and that's what we were left with in the end.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm not clear now. Who they were trying to support people in just being a pure jazz career?
Oh, no. I'm talking about successful in the recording business.
Right.
Generally.
But they looked at you and resented, like, oh, he's taken all the gigs. So the people were envious of you.
Sure they were, but they could never find an unfair reason that I was there.
How many people could really play the instruments that you play anyway? I mean, it was basically really, when you look back on it. I mean, I just transcribed my interview with. I don't know if you ever knew. You probably saw Big Brother in the Holding Company, Janice, but
yeah.
The drummer Dave Getz. I did an interview with him, and he grew up in Brooklyn, and he used to play at the Catskill gigs. Maybe you did too. I don't know, but he was playing Gross Singers and the Concord and places like, and he was talking about Barry Rogers and Mark Weinstein creating under the Palmieri supervision, Charlie and Eddie Palmieri, creating that signature 2 trombone sound in salsa music. It's like Bones Malone, Barry Rogers, and yourself. I mean, I don't want to leave out I'm sure there's a few more bone players, but I mean, and tuba. I mean, how many cats really do what you? I mean, there's a million guitar players.
Well, I got lucky with the tuba. I was a trombone player all the way up through high school, all the way up through college. Every time I picked up the tuba just to try it, it just didn't work. It was not non-simpatico, right?
Yeah.
And then to stay out of Vietnam, I got a 1Y teaching in New York City. I was teaching school in the Bronx. I was married and I didn't want to go in the service, so I got a 1Y, legitimately, because I was a teacher. Okay, so I'm teaching for the New York public schools, junior high school. I had a band up there in the middle of the Southeast Bronx, and that was quite an experience in itself. But in its inestimable wisdom, the Board of Ed sent me 5 tubas in December. Now, you'd start your program in September, and that's an odd instrument to try to farm out and get people to start, kids,
Oh, yeah, it's a big...
So I got 4 or 5. I got 4 out of the 5 started. And there's this brand new E-flat, that's a smaller instrument, tuba, more conducive to kids, size anyway, that I had in my closet up in my band room. And I picked it up one day during a noon hour, and I started to play. Now, I had played trumpet in high school, so I had a really good working knowledge of valves and so forth and so on. And then the mouthpiece was in between a regular tuba mouthpiece and a bass trombone mouthpiece. It was like a real hybrid size. And for some reason, man, this damn thing was instant music. I couldn't believe it. I had a ball just playing by myself. And then I was playing with Howard Johnson at a place called Your Father's Mustache, which became the Red Garter in New York City. We were playing kind of pseudo-Dixieland tunes, sing-along tunes. And I told him one night, and he said, "You're playing E-flat tuba? I'm starting a band, you're the second voice." This is 1968. And we've been together ever since. So anyway, just to tell you that sometimes instruments happen. I didn't play it at all during all of my training years and stuff like that. It just happened late. And so I began to play that, and it became as important to me, to my career at some points, as the trombone has been. I've had a band with a virtuoso tuba player from Paris named Michel Godard. We have a quartet called Tuba Tuba. It's two tubas and a rhythm section. And we've been playing. We've got a couple of records out on Enja. I mean, this instrument became very important to me. The reason that I played the others, bass trombone, euphonium, so forth and so on, is because you would get calls for that in the recording industry, and you better cover all the bases, and that's what I did.
Well, it was great to hang, man. Let's make sure you shoot me. Let me know what your email is. You can message me your email, and I'll get a copy of this up and be transcribing some of these epic stories. And have a great gig tonight, man. We'll be in touch.
All right. Nice to meet you on the phone, Jake.
Yeah. We'll connect soon, man. Much love to Hojo, man. Just keep it going, baby.
Okay.
All right. Later on.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Another one of the books, Dave Bargeron, part of the lexicon. We'll be back tomorrow with Debashish Bhattacharya. Until then, peace.